I'm Nora, 35 years old, and until last month, I was the invisible CEO of Sterling Grand Hotels. My husband Jason had no idea that I owned the upscale venue where his brother was getting married. So when the wedding planner called to tell me, "Your husband canceled your invitation but asked to keep the $50,000 deposit you paid," I made a decision that would change everything. "Cancel the entire wedding," I replied calmly. She gasped. "But ma'am, you're not the bride." I cut her off. "No, but I own the venue, the catering company, and the hotel chain they booked for guests." Before I tell you how I ended up canceling my brother-in-law's wedding, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up for yourself when no one else would. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago where my parents owned a small bed and breakfast. From a young age, I was fascinated by the hospitality industry. I would help change sheets, greet guests, and eventually manage bookings. My parents worked incredibly hard, but always struggled financially. They taught me the value of hard work and the importance of treating people with respect, regardless of their status. When I turned 18, I left for college with a scholarship to study business management. Those years were tough. I juggled 3 jobs while maintaining a full course load. My apartment was tiny, my meals were cheap, and sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford. But I had a dream and a plan. During my senior year, I met Victoria, a guest lecturer who had built a small chain of boutique hotels. Something about my questions caught her attention, and she offered me an internship after graduation. Under her mentorship, I learned the ins and outs of the hotel business. She saw potential in me that I hadn't fully recognized in myself. At 25, with Victoria's backing and every penny I had saved, I took a risk and purchased a struggling hotel on the outskirts of Chicago. Everyone thought I was crazy, but I had studied the market and location carefully. With renovations and rebranding, the hotel began to turn a profit within 6 months. Over the next 10 years, I strategically acquired more properties, renovated them, and built what became Sterling Grand Hotels, named after my grandmother. By 35, I owned 15 high-end properties across the country, with a reputation for exceptional service. I worked relentlessly, often sleeping in my office and reinvesting every dollar of profit back into the business. Despite my success, I maintained a low profile. My name wasn't on the company materials, and I rarely appeared at public events. I had watched how wealth changed relationships, how people treated you differently when they knew you had money. I wanted to be loved and respected for who I was, not what I owned. I met Jason at an alumni event where I was speaking anonymously as a hospitality consultant. At 38, he was a history professor with a genuine passion for medieval architecture. He had no interest in material wealth and seemed refreshingly unimpressed by the networking opportunities around him. Instead, he talked passionately about Gothic cathedrals and the craftsmanship of medieval artisans. Our first date was at a small coffee shop where we talked for hours. He listened to my carefully edited stories about consulting work with genuine interest. With Jason, I felt seen for the first time in years, not as a CEO or a success story, but as a woman who loved old movies and collected vintage postcards from hotels around the world. Our relationship moved quickly. Within a year, Jason proposed with a modest ring that represented his savings. I was touched by the gesture and his sincerity. I made a conscious decision not to reveal the extent of my wealth. I wanted to be sure that our foundation was built on genuine connection, not financial security. We had a small wedding at a local restaurant, not one of my properties. I told Jason I had some savings that could help us buy a modest house in a nice neighborhood. He accepted this without question, grateful that we wouldn't have to struggle financially, but still planning to contribute his professor's salary to our household. Jason's family dynamics became apparent early in our relationship. His parents, Chase and Sandra, were traditional and intensely focused on status. Chase worked in banking, and Sandra was involved in various social committees and charity boards. They lived in a large house in the suburbs and were preoccupied with maintaining appearances. Jason's younger brother, Quentin, 32, had always been competitive with Jason. Where Jason pursued education and intellectual pursuits, Quentin chose business school and worked for a commercial real estate firm. There was constant tension between them, with Quentin often making subtle jabs about Jason's career choice and modest lifestyle. From the beginning, I noticed the way Jason's family treated me. There were subtle comments about my background, questions about my family's status, and assumptions about my education. Sandra would often mention other women they knew with excellent breeding and appropriate connections. I chose to ignore these comments for Jason's sake, but they stung. After our wedding, I continued to run my company remotely while maintaining the facade of working as a consultant. Jason never questioned why my consulting allowed us to live comfortably or why I sometimes had to take calls in private. He respected my space and independence, which was one of the qualities I loved most about him. Despite the red flags with his family, I believed our love was strong enough to overcome these challenges. I couldn't have been more wrong. 3 years into our marriage, the cracks began to show. Jason insisted on weekly Sunday dinners at his parents' home, events I came to dread. Each visit felt like walking through a minefield of judgment and subtle insults. "Dear," Sandra would say, examining my outfit, "that's certainly a unique choice. I suppose it works for your figure." Or, "I noticed your roots are showing. I can recommend my stylist if you can manage the expense." These comments were always delivered with a smile, making it difficult to call out the rudeness without seeming oversensitive. Jason rarely noticed, and when I pointed them out later, he would say I was misinterpreting his mother's helpful suggestions. During one particularly uncomfortable dinner, Sandra spent 20 minutes discussing her country club friends whose daughters had married doctors, lawyers, and business executives. "It's so important to make advantageous connections," she said, looking directly at me. "Some people just don't understand the value of proper networking." Then came the announcement that changed everything. Quentin burst into Sunday dinner, beaming, his arm around a tall, elegant blonde woman. "Everyone, this is Zafira Martinez," he announced proudly, "daughter of Carlos Martinez of Martinez Development Group, and as of last night, my fiancé." The Martinez family was well known in real estate circles. Carlos Martinez had developed luxury properties across the country, including some that competed with my hotels. Zafira had grown up with wealth and privilege, attended exclusive private schools, and graduated from an Ivy League university. She was, in Sandra's words, exactly the kind of connection the family needed. The excitement was palpable as Quentin announced they had booked the Grandview Manor Hotel for their wedding, one of the most exclusive venues in the city. I nearly choked on my wine. The Grandview Manor was one of my flagship properties, a historic building I had personally overseen the renovation of 2 years earlier. It's costing a fortune, but Zafira deserves the best, and the connections we'll make at this wedding will be invaluable. I sat quietly, processing this information while a storm of conflicting emotions raged inside me. Should I reveal my ownership? Would that finally earn me the respect I deserved from this family? Or would it only confirm their materialistic values and potentially damage my relationship with Jason? I decided to remain silent for now. Part of me was curious to see how this would play out, and another part hoped the wedding might actually bring the family closer together. A week later, Quentin and Zafira visited our home. Zafira walked through our living room with barely concealed disdain. "It's so cozy," she said, running a finger along our bookshelf. "I suppose academics don't really need much space." Quentin added, You should see the house we're buying. 5,000 square feet, pool, wine cellar, dad's helping with the down payment. Over dinner, the conversation turned to wedding costs. The Grandview is bleeding us dry, Quentin complained. $50,000 just for the venue and basic catering package. Chase nodded grimly. These luxury places know they can charge whatever they want. Highway robbery, if you ask me. I bit my tongue to keep from defending the pricing structure I had personally approved. Instead, I said, perhaps I could help. I have some connections in the hospitality industry through my consulting work. No offense, Nora, but we need someone with real influence. This is a high society wedding. The next day, I called Rachel, my executive assistant, and arranged a special client discount for Quentin's wedding. I anonymously covered the $50,000 deposit through my company, telling myself it was a wedding gift they would never know about. As the wedding date approached, Jason became increasingly preoccupied with fitting in at this high society event. He bought an expensive suit, worried about which fort to use, and practiced small talk about topics he thought would impress Saphira's family. "You don't need to change who you are," I told him one evening. "You don't understand the pressure," he replied. "My family has expectations. This wedding is important for us all." The subtle shift in our relationship was becoming more noticeable. Jason was spending more time with his family, attending tuxedo fittings and menu tastings that somehow never included me. Sandra invited me for a wedding shopping trip with Saphira, an experience that proved excruciating. At an upscale boutique, I selected a simple but elegant navy dress. Sandra wrinkled her nose. "Oh, Nora, that's not appropriate for a wedding of this caliber. Perhaps something more subdued. We wouldn't want you to stand out for the wrong reasons." Zafira agreed, yes, the family photos have a specific aesthetic we're aiming for. As I retreated to the changing room, I overheard Sandra whispering to Zafira, "Jason married her before we could intervene. She's not our kind of people, but we make do. Just keep her in the background for the photos." That evening, I confronted Jason about his family's treatment of me. "They constantly belittle me and make me feel unwelcome, and you say nothing." "They're just particular about certain things," Jason defended. "You're too sensitive. They show love differently than your family did." "This isn't about different love languages, Jason. This is about basic respect." "You just don't understand their ways," he insisted. "This wedding is stressful for everyone. Once it's over, things will go back to normal." I wasn't sure I wanted things to go back to what Jason considered normal, but I loved him and wanted to believe we could work through this rough patch. The next day, I made arrangements through my company to pay the $50,000 deposit for Quentin and Zafira's wedding venue. I told myself it was a gesture of goodwill, a way to contribute to family harmony. In reality, it was probably an attempt to buy the acceptance I never really had. Little did I know, this financial decision would become the catalyst for everything that followed. 6 weeks before the wedding, Jason began attending what he called family-only planning meetings. At first, it was once a week, then twice, then almost every evening. "Why can't I come?" I asked after the third meeting. "It's just boring details," Jason said dismissively. "Plus, my mother thinks it's better to keep the planning circle small. Too many opinions complicate things." One afternoon, while Jason was at work, I was organizing our home office when I found a folder labeled Wedding. Inside was a guest list with seating arrangements. I scanned the family table names: Chase, Sandra, Quentin, Saphira, Jason. My name was conspicuously absent. When Jason came home, I showed him the list. "Why am I not seated with the family?" He snatched the paper from my hand. "That's just a draft. Nothing's finalized. You shouldn't be going through my things." His defensive reaction only heightened my suspicions. Something wasn't right. The next day, Sandra called. ostensibly to ask about my dress for the wedding. "We want to make sure everyone coordinates appropriately," she said. "The photos are very important to Zafira." "I've chosen a midnight blue dress," I told her. There was a pause. "Oh, well, we were thinking immediate family would stick to pastels and champagne tones. Perhaps you could find something else, something that won't draw attention." The implications were clear. I wasn't considered immediate family, and I shouldn't stand out. 2 weeks later came Quentin and Zafira's engagement party at an upscale restaurant. When we arrived, I discovered our seats were at different tables. Jason was placed with his parents, Quentin and Zafira, while I was relegated to a table with distant cousins and colleagues from Quentin's office. "There must be a mistake," I said to Jason. "It's not a big deal," he whispered. "It's just for dinner. Don't make a scene." Throughout the evening, I watched Jason laughing and engaged with his family while I sat with strangers. Occasionally, he would glance my way with an apologetic smile, but he made no effort to include me. After the party, Jason became increasingly secretive. He would take phone calls in another room, quickly end conversations when I entered, and password protect his phone, something he'd never done before. One day, I called Linda, the event coordinator at Grandview Manor, maintaining my anonymity as the owner. "Everything is proceeding as planned," she assured me, "though there have been some unusual last-minute changes to the guest list and seating arrangements." "What kind of changes?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Nothing that affects our preparations, just some internal family adjustments," Linda said, professionally, unaware she was speaking to her boss. I pressed further. "Could you send me the most recent seating chart? I want to make sure everything is perfect for the clients." When the email arrived, I scanned the family table section again. Not only was my name missing, but there was no place for me anywhere in the ballroom. That evening, I overheard Jason on the phone in our backyard. "Mom, I know, but I haven't figured out how to handle the situation with Nora yet," he said in a hushed voice. "Yes, I understand how important this is. No, she doesn't suspect anything. I'll take care of it, I promise." My heart raced as I retreated to our bedroom. What situation needed handling? What didn't I suspect? Sleep eluded me that night as I stared at the ceiling, questioning everything about our marriage. The next morning, I checked Jason's phone while he was in the shower, something I'd never done before. There were multiple text exchanges between him and Quentin. "Quentin, have you solved the Nora problem yet?" Jason, "Working on it. It's complicated." "Uncomplicated. This wedding is too important." Jason, "I know. I'll figure it out." My hands trembled as I placed the phone back on the nightstand. The Nora problem. That's what I had become to the family I had tried so hard to please. Jason's late nights became more frequent. Wedding responsibilities, he would say vaguely when I asked where he had been. Sometimes he would come home smelling of wine, claiming he'd had dinner with Quentin to discuss brother of the groom duties. 2 weeks before the wedding, I finally confronted him. "Jason, what's going on? You're avoiding me, you're secretive, and I feel like you're lying to me about this wedding. You're creating problems where there are any." He said angrily. "This is exactly why—" He stopped abruptly. "Exactly what, Jason?" "Nothing. You're being paranoid. This wedding is stressful for everyone, and your attitude isn't helping." I felt like I was losing my mind. Was I really overreacting? Was I creating problems that didn't exist? The next day, I called my best friend, Emma, and explained the situation. Unlike me, Emma had always been suspicious of Jason's family. Trust your instincts, Nora, she said firmly. Something is definitely wrong here, and if they're excluding you from this wedding, you need to confront it directly. But what if I'm wrong? What if I'm just being oversensitive like Jason says? Then you'll have cleared the air. But I don't think you're wrong, honey, and it's time you stood up for yourself. The final dress fitting was the last straw. I arrived at the boutique to find Sandra, Zafira, and 3 bridesmaids, all wearing matching robes and sipping champagne. Sandra's smile froze when she saw me. Nora, what are you doing here? I have my final fitting today. The boutique confirmed yesterday. Zafira and Sandra exchanged glances. There must have been a mix-up, Zafira said smoothly. Today is just for the wedding party. But I'm family too, I insisted. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. No one contradicted me, but no one agreed either. I left the boutique and sat in my car, tears streaming down my face. Then, wiping my eyes, I drove to my office. For the first time in years, I felt my 2 worlds colliding. I needed the confidence of CEO Nora to help wife Nora navigate this betrayal. At my office, I checked my email and found something that confirmed my worst fears. A forwarded message from Sandra to the wedding planner about a revised guest list, with a note that read, "Please ensure Nora Thompson is removed from all arrangements. Jason will be attending alone." The email had been accidentally copied to one of my event coordinators, who had forwarded it to Rachel, who then had sent it to me with the note, "Miss Thompson, I thought you should see this since it concerns the Martinez wedding at Grandview Manor." I stared at the screen, my suspicions confirmed in black and white. They were uninviting me to the wedding, and Jason was complicit. As pain gave way to anger, I made a decision. No more hiding, no more accepting disrespect. If Jason and his family wanted to exclude me, they would learn exactly who they were dealing with. The morning of the wedding arrived. I woke to find Jason packing his tuxedo and toiletries. I noticed immediately that there was no garment bag for my dress, no indication that he expected me to join him. "You're not taking my things," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. Jason froze, then slowly turned to face me. "Nora, we need to talk." "Yes, we do. You're uninviting me to the wedding, aren't you?" His shoulders slumped. "It's not what you think." "Then explain it to me, Jason. Explain why your family's wedding planner has been instructed to remove me from the guest list." His eyes widened. "How did you know that?" "So it's true." The confirmation still hurt, despite my preparation. Jason sat on the edge of the bed. "It's a family decision. Quentin and Zafira are concerned about appearances. There will be important people there, clients of Carlos Martinez, society people. And I'm not good enough for them." I finished. "It's not personal, it's just you don't know how to navigate these circles. My family is worried you might say or do something inappropriate." "Inappropriate?" I repeated, stunned by his candor. "You know what I mean. You didn't grow up with these social rules. Mom thinks you might embarrass the family." Each word was a dagger. 3 years of marriage, and this was what my husband thought of me? "And you agree with them?" "I'm caught in the middle here," Jason said defensively. "This wedding is important for Quentin's career, for my family's connections. More important than your wife's dignity. It's one day, Nora. I promise I'll make it up to you. We can take that trip to Vermont you've been wanting, just you and me." I stared at this man I thought I knew, this man I had loved. In that moment, he was a stranger to me. "You should go," I said quietly. "Your family is waiting." Relief washed over his face. Thank you for being reasonable about this." He kissed my cheek and hurried out, leaving me standing alone in our bedroom. The moment the door closed behind him, I collapsed onto the bed, sobs racking my body. Everything I had feared was true. I wasn't family to them. I was an embarrassment, a problem to be solved. For an hour, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of the betrayal. Then, wiping away my tears, I stood up. Enough was enough. Just as I was about to call Rachel, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Mrs. Thompson?" a polished female voice asked. "Yes, this is Nora Thompson. This is Michelle Garcia from Elegant Affairs. I'm the wedding planner for the Martinez wedding at Grandview Manor Hotel. I'm calling to confirm that you understand you will not be attending today's events." The audacity took my breath away. "I'm aware my husband has canceled my invitation." "Yes, excellent. Also, Mr. Thompson mentioned that despite your absence, you would like the $50,000 deposit you provided to remain with the venue. I just need your verbal confirmation for our records." My mind raced. Jason wanted to uninvite me, but keep the money I paid? Money he didn't even know came directly from my company? In that moment, something inside me snapped. 3 years of subtle insults, of being treated as less than, of compromising my identity, all came to a head. "Actually," I said, my voice suddenly calm and authoritative, "I want you to cancel the entire wedding." There was a pause. "Excuse me?" "Cancel everything. The venue, the catering, all of it." "But ma'am," Michelle sputtered, "you're not the bride. You don't have the authority to cancel the Martinez wedding." "No, I agree. I'm not the bride. But I am Nora Thompson, CEO and owner of Sterling Grand Hotels, which includes the Grandview Manor Hotel. I also own Premier Catering, which is handling the food service, and the entire hotel chain where the out-of-town guests are staying." The silence on the other end was deafening. "Mrs. Thompson," Michelle finally said, her voice trembling, "there must be some mistake." The only mistake was thinking I would continue to accept disrespect from my husband and his family. "Please inform the venue manager that the event is canceled effective immediately. I'll be there shortly to handle any questions." "But the guests? They're arriving in 3 hours. The Martinez family will be devastated. The social implications alone." "That's not my concern. I've made my decision." "Please," Michelle begged, "reconsider. This will be a disaster for everyone involved, including Elegant Affairs." "I've reconsidered my place in this family for 3 years, Miss Garcia. Now it's their turn to reconsider how they've treated me." I ended the call and immediately dialed David, the manager of Grandview Manor. "David, this is Nora. The Martinez wedding scheduled for today is canceled. Please begin informing staff immediately." "Miss Thompson, are you sure? Everything is already set up." "I'm sure. Also, call Sarah at Premier and have her halt all food preparation. I'll be there within an hour to handle any fallout." Next, I called Rachel. "Rachel, I need you to send me all the documentation of payments made for the Martinez wedding, particularly the $50,000 deposit from Sterling Corporate. Email it to my personal account." "Yes, Miss Thompson. Is everything okay?" "It will be," I assured her. "It will be very soon." I showered and dressed with purpose. Selecting a tailored black suit I reserved for important business meetings, I applied my makeup carefully, styled my hair, and put on the pearl necklace my grandmother had left me for strength. As I drove to the Grandview Manor, my hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Part of me wondered if I was overreacting, if this nuclear option was too extreme. But then I remembered Jason's words. It's not personal. How could my husband's betrayal be anything but personal? I pulled into the private parking area reserved for hotel executives. The Grandview Manor was a stunning property, a renovated historic building with classical architecture and modern amenities. Usually, seeing it filled me with pride. Today, it was the battleground for my marriage and self-respect. As I walked through the service entrance, I could see the chaos unfolding. Staff members were frantically speaking into headsets, wedding decorations were half assembled, and flowers were being arranged in large urns. David spotted me immediately and hurried over. "Miss Thompson, we've begun the cancellation process, but the wedding party is already here for early photographs. The groom's mother is demanding to speak with management." "Where are they now?" "The Wellington Room. They're using it as a staging area before the ceremony." "Thank you, David. I'll handle it from here." I took a deep breath and headed toward the Wellington Room, ready to finally reveal my true identity to the family that had never accepted me. As I approached the Wellington Room, a staff member hurried to open the door for me. "Good morning, Miss Thompson," she said respectfully. Inside, the scene was chaotic. Sandra was gesturing wildly at a terrified-looking junior event coordinator. Quentin was pacing back and forth in his tuxedo, while Zafira sat in a corner, her wedding dress billowing around her, mascara streaking down her face. Chase stood with his phone pressed to his ear, speaking loudly about contractual obligations and legal action. Jason was nowhere to be seen. No one noticed me enter until David stepped in behind me. "Excuse me, everyone," he announced. "Miss Thompson is here to address the situation." All eyes turned to me. Confusion flashed across their faces before Sandra stepped forward. "Nora, what are you doing here, and why are you dressed like that?" Her eyes narrowed. "Did you have something to do with this disaster?" I maintained my composure. "I think we should discuss this privately. David, please ask the staff to give us the room." As the staff filed out, Quentin approached me aggressively. "What the hell is going on? Who do you think you are coming here like this?" "I'm exactly who I've always been, though perhaps not who you thought I was." The door opened again and Jason walked in, stopping abruptly when he saw me. "Nora, what are you doing here?" Before I could answer, Zafira stood up, her wedding dress rustling. "Can someone please tell me what's happening?" "They're saying our wedding is canceled. All of it. The venue, the catering, everything." "That's correct," I confirmed. "You?" Quentin sputtered. "What do you have to do with any of this?" Chase ended his call and joined the conversation. "I demand to speak to the manager of this establishment immediately. This is an outrageous breach of contract." "You're speaking to her right now," I said, nodding toward myself. "David, would you please tell everyone who I am?" David cleared his throat. "This is Miss Nora Thompson, founder and CEO of Sterling Grand Hotels, which includes the Grandview Manor and 14 other premium properties nationwide. She's also the owner of Premier Catering and Sterling Hospitality Group." The room fell silent as 5 pairs of eyes stared at me in disbelief. "That's impossible," Sandra finally whispered. I removed an envelope from my purse and placed it on the table. "These are the documents showing the $50,000 deposit for this wedding, paid by Sterling Corporate, my company. The same $50,000 that Jason confirmed should be retained despite canceling my invitation." Jason's face had gone pale. "Nora, I can explain." "Can you? Can you explain why you thought it was acceptable to uninvite your wife to a family wedding but keep her money? Can you explain 3 years of allowing your family to belittle and disrespect me?" You own this hotel? Quentin interrupted, his voice incredulous. All this time you've been, what, pretending to be normal? I've never pretended to be anything other than who I am. I chose not to disclose the extent of my business success because I wanted relationships based on genuine connection, not financial interest. Sandra had sunk into a chair, her social calculations visibly recalibrating. But your clothes, your background, you said your parents ran a small bed and breakfast. They did, and I built on their legacy to create something larger, something I'm proud of. Chase stepped forward suddenly, all smiles. Nora, dear, clearly there has been a terrible misunderstanding. We had no idea of your position. That's precisely the problem, Chase. You judged me based on your perception of my worth, not who I actually am. You decided I wasn't good enough for your family. Jason approached me cautiously. Nora, please, can we talk about this privately? No, Jason. For too long, things have happened behind my back. This conversation happens here with everyone present. Zafira stood up and surprised me by saying, She's right. This is horrible, Quentin. You told me Nora couldn't come because she had a prior commitment. Quentin's face reddened. That's what Jason told us. All eyes turned to Jason, who looked trapped. Mom and Dad thought it would be better this way, he said weakly. They were worried about impressions with the Martinez family. And you agreed with them, I said quietly. You chose your family's social aspirations over your wife's dignity. I was caught in the middle, Jason pleaded. No, you weren't. You made a choice. And now I'm making mine. David knocked and entered again. Miss Thompson, guests are beginning to arrive. What would you like us to tell them? The room held its breath as everyone waited for my answer. This was the moment of decision. I could follow through with the cancellation, creating a social disaster for the family that had rejected me, or I could find another way forward. Nora, Zafira said suddenly, stepping toward me, I had no idea they uninvited you. That's not the kind of family I want to marry into. She turned to Quentin. How could you do this? How could any of you think this was acceptable? Quentin looked stunned. Zafira, baby, we can fix this. Can we? She challenged. Because I'm not sure I want to marry someone who treats family this way. In that moment, I saw genuine fear in Quentin's eyes, not of social embarrassment, but of losing someone he truly loved. Sandra rushed to damage control. Nora, dear, we're family. Surely we can work this out. Whatever issues there have been, I'm certain we can move past them. I looked at each of them in turn, these people who had judged me, excluded me, and treated me as less than. But I also saw something new. Respect, however belated and self-serving it might be. The wedding can proceed on one condition, I finally said. Anything, Quentin agreed quickly. I want a genuine apology from each of you and a commitment that the disrespect ends today. I won't be treated as an outsider in my own family anymore. Chase stepped forward first. Nora, I sincerely apologize for any disrespect you've experienced. We clearly misjudged you, and that was our loss. Sandra followed, though her words seemed more calculated. I'm deeply sorry, Nora. I hope you can forgive my short-sightedness. Quentin looked at Zafira, then at me. I'm sorry, Nora. You didn't deserve this treatment, regardless of who you are or what you own. Finally, Jason approached me. Nora, I've failed you as a husband. I should have stood up for you, protected you. Instead, I betrayed your trust. I'm so deeply sorry. I looked at David. The wedding will proceed as scheduled. Please inform the staff. Relief washed over the room, but I raised my hand. However, there will be changes to the seating arrangements. I will be seated with my husband at the family table, where I belong. And going forward, I expect to be treated with the respect due to both a family member and the owner of this establishment. Sandra nodded quickly. Of course, dear, absolutely. David, please have my office send over my navy suit, the one that matches the family color scheme. I couldn't resist that small dig, and from Sandra's expression, it landed perfectly. As David left to carry out my instructions, I turned to Jason. We will discuss our marriage privately later. For now, we will present a united front for the sake of the family. He nodded, understanding the implied threat in my words. Zafira approached me hesitantly. Thank you for not ruining our day despite having every right to. I hope we can start over. I'd like to know the real you. Her sincerity surprised me. I'd like that too, Zafira. As everyone dispersed to resume wedding preparations, Jason tried to take my hand. I pulled away. Nora, please. Not now, Jason. Today you're the loving husband and I'm the supportive wife. Tomorrow we decide if that fiction becomes reality again. The power had shifted. For the first time since I'd met Jason's family, I was seen not as the woman they wanted me to be, but the woman I truly was. The wedding ceremony proceeded with an undercurrent of tension that only those involved in the morning's confrontation could detect. I sat in the front row where immediate family belonged, wearing my midnight blue suit that complemented the wedding colors perfectly. Jason sat beside me, occasionally reaching for my hand, which I would allow him to hold briefly before finding a reason to break contact. Throughout the ceremony, I caught Sandra glancing at me with a new, calculating look. Chase kept nodding in my direction whenever our eyes met, as if we now shared some special understanding. Quentin avoided looking at me entirely, while Zafira surprisingly offered genuine smiles. As the bride and groom exchanged vows, I couldn't help but reflect on my own wedding day and the promises Jason and I had made to each other. Promises that now felt hollow in light of his betrayal. At the reception, I navigated the dual role of family member and venue owner with practiced ease. When complimented on the beautiful space or exquisite food, I smiled and thanked the guests without revealing my connection to the property. This was Quentin and Zafira's day, and despite everything, I wouldn't overshadow their celebration with revelations about my identity. Eric remained by my side, playing the devoted husband while attempting to initiate private conversation. Can we talk? He whispered during the first dance. About what? I replied, maintaining my smile for anyone watching. About us. About what happened. I need to explain. I think your actions explained everything quite clearly. Throughout the evening, Jason made continuous attempts to speak with me privately, but I deflected each time. I wasn't ready for that conversation. Not yet. I needed time to process my feelings and decide what our future, if any, would look like. During the dinner, Chase stood to give his toast. After the standard congratulations to the couple, he surprised me by adding, "And I'd like to extend a special thanks to my daughter-in-law, Nora, whose generous contribution made this beautiful celebration possible." The guests applauded politely, unaware of the morning's drama or the true extent of my contribution. Sandra's smile tightened at her husband's unexpected acknowledgement. Jason's speech as best man included a strange coded apology. Quentin, you're fortunate to have found someone who values loyalty and honesty as much as the Fira does. Some of us are still learning the importance of standing by the ones we love, no matter what pressures we face. His eyes found mine as he spoke these words, a public acknowledgement of his failure that left me unmoved. After the speeches, I excused myself to check on the kitchen operations. Jason followed me into the hallway. Nora, please, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. I sighed and led him to my private office at the hotel, a space he'd never seen before. As we entered the elegantly appointed room with its view of the city skyline, Jason looked around in wonder. "This has been your world all along," he said softly. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Why didn't you stand by me?" I countered. Jason sank into a chair. "I have no excuse. I was weak. I let my family's expectations cloud my judgment. I convinced myself it was just one day, that it wouldn't matter in the long run." "It wasn't just one day, Jason. It was 3 years of allowing your family to belittle me. 3 years of choosing their approval over my dignity." "I know," he admitted. "I failed you. When we met, I was so impressed by you, by your intelligence and kindness. I thought I'd finally found someone who loved me for myself, not for status or family connections." "I did love you for yourself. That's why I kept my business separate. I wanted to be sure you loved me for who I am, not what I own." "The irony isn't lost on me," Jason said bitterly. "My family rejected me because they thought I wasn't good enough, when in reality, you've achieved more than all of us combined." "This isn't about money or success, Jason. It's about respect and loyalty. You were supposed to be my partner, my protector." "I want to be that man, Nora. Tell me how to fix this." I looked at my husband, this man I had loved so deeply, and felt a profound sadness. I don't know if it can be fixed. I need time to think about what I want, about whether our marriage can survive this betrayal. "Are you leaving me?" The fear in his voice was palpable. "I'm not making any decisions today. For now, I'll be staying at my penthouse apartment in the city while I decide what comes next." "You have an apartment I don't know about?" "I have many things you don't know about, Jason. That's the point. You never really tried to know me." We returned to the reception separately. I plastered on a smile and played my role as the supportive wife and gracious hostess. When guests commented on the beautiful venue or delicious food, I accepted their compliments without revealing my connection. However, as the evening progressed, several business associates of Carlos Martinez recognized me. "Nora Thompson," one man said in surprise. "I didn't realize you were connected to the Martinez family. We met at the hospitality conference in Denver last year." These moments created ripples of whispers throughout the reception. I could see the information spreading, the curious glances, the reevaluation of who I was in the social hierarchy of the room. Sandra cornered me in the ladies' room, her smile brittle. "You could have told us, Nora. All this time we thought, well, it doesn't matter now. We're family after all." "Are we, Sandra? Because this morning I wasn't family enough to attend this wedding." "A misunderstanding," she said dismissively. "Jason miscommunicated our concerns." "Don't blame Jason for executing the family plan. I heard you tell Zafira I wasn't your kind of people. Has my net worth suddenly changed that assessment?" Sandra had the grace to look embarrassed. "People say things they don't mean. Surely you understand, family dynamics can be complicated." "I understand respect, Sandra. Something I haven't received from this family until today, when you learned I had something you value." I left her standing there, her carefully constructed social persona cracked perhaps for the first time in her life. Later in the evening, Quentin approached me at the bar, clearly having had several drinks. "So my brother married a secret millionaire. All this time I thought I was the successful one." "Success isn't measured by bank accounts, Quentin." "Easy for you to say when you have both," he replied bitterly. You know what's funny? I've always been jealous of Jason. Even when I thought he married down, I envied how happy he seemed with you. My parents pushed me towards Zafira partly because of her family's connections. I love her, but there was always that pressure to make a suitable match. His candor surprised me. And now? Now I don't know what to think. Jason betrayed the one genuine thing in his life to please our parents. I'm not sure I want to follow that example. As the reception wound down, I informed Jason I would be staying in the hotel penthouse that night. When will you come home? He asked, his voice small. I don't know, Jason. I truly don't know. The next morning brought a family breakfast in one of the hotel's private dining rooms. The atmosphere was tense as we all navigated the new dynamic. Jason looked like he hadn't slept, his eyes red-rimmed and hair disheveled. Nora, dear, we must have you over for lunch soon. I'd love to hear more about your business ventures. I'll check my schedule, I replied noncommittally. Chase leaned toward me. Perhaps we could discuss some potential synergies between my investment group and your hotel chain. I have several clients who might be interested in partnerships. I nodded politely, unsurprised by his pivot to potential business advantages. My executive team handles all investment opportunities, Chase. I'd be happy to connect you with our development director. Jason watched these interactions with visible discomfort, saying little. As breakfast concluded, Zafira pulled me aside. Thank you again for yesterday. Despite everything, it was beautiful. And I want you to know I had no idea they had uninvited you. That's not the kind of family I thought I was marrying into. What kind of family did you think it was? I asked gently. She considered this. One that valued loyalty and connection, not just appearances. I have some thinking to do about my own marriage, I think. I squeezed her hand. Just remember, the foundation matters more than the facade. 3 months after the wedding, I was living in my penthouse apartment downtown. The space reflected my true self in ways our shared home never had, with art I'd collected from my travels, books on business and architecture, and the vintage hotel postcards I'd kept hidden away. Twice a week, I met with Dr. Patricia Williams, a therapist who specialized in relationship trauma. You compromised your identity to protect a relationship that wasn't strong enough to survive honesty, she observed during one session. What does that tell you about the foundation you built with Jason? Her question forced me to confront uncomfortable truths. Had I enabled the disrespect by hiding who I truly was? Had my desire for authentic connection actually created a relationship built on partial truths? I wanted to be loved for myself, not for my success or money. And yet you never gave Jason the chance to love the complete you, she pointed out. Relationships require vulnerability on both sides. These insights didn't excuse Jason's betrayal or his family's behavior, but they helped me understand my own role in our dysfunctional dynamic. Meanwhile, Jason's attempts at reconciliation were persistent. He sent heartfelt letters acknowledging his failures, delivered thoughtful gifts that reflected our history together, and respected my requests for space while making it clear he wanted to rebuild our marriage. I've started therapy, he wrote in one letter. I'm learning about family systems and how I've been conditioned to seek approval in unhealthy ways. I'm not making excuses, just trying to understand why I failed the person I love most. After 2 months of separation, I agreed to meet Jason at a neutral location, a small coffee shop where we'd had our first date. He looked different somehow, more grounded, but also more vulnerable. Thank you for coming, he said, his voice fake with emotion. I'm not making any promises. I'm still processing everything. I understand. I just want a chance to show you I can be the husband you deserve. Over the next hour, Jason detailed the changes he'd been making. He'd confronted his parents about their treatment of me, setting firm boundaries for the first time in his life. He had joined a support group for people from controlling families. Most surprisingly, he had turned down a prestigious academic position his father had arranged because he recognized it as another form of control. I've lived my entire life seeking my family's approval. Even my career choice was influenced by what would impress my father, while still seeming rebellious. I never fully individuated from them, and I dragged you into that dysfunction. His self-awareness was impressive, but I remained cautious. Words are easy, Jason. Actions take time to prove. I know. I'm asking for the chance to show you through actions that I can change. As Jason worked on himself, I focused on my own growth. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected during my marriage and strengthened relationships with my own family. I threw myself into new business ventures, including a scholarship program for young people interested in the hospitality industry. Unexpectedly, I developed a friendship with Zafira, who reached out after returning from her honeymoon. "I can't stop thinking about what happened," she confessed over coffee. "The way they treated you makes me question everything." She shared her own struggles with Quentin's family's expectations and her growing disillusionment with the marriage she'd entered. "I thought I was joining a prestigious family. Now I see how shallow those values are." Our conversations became a regular occurrence, and I found myself in the strange position of counseling my sister-in-law about whether to remain in a marriage connected to the same family I was considering leaving. 6 months after the wedding incident, I agreed to give Jason one final chance, with strict conditions. We would attend couples therapy weekly. He would maintain his boundaries with his family, and most importantly, we would renovate our home to create a space that represented both of us authentically. "I don't want to live a compartmentalized life anymore," I told him. "If we're going to rebuild, it has to be with complete honesty." Jason embraced these conditions with genuine commitment. He suggested converting his study into a home office where I could work on hotel business where needed. He asked thoughtful questions about my company and expressed interest in understanding that part of my life. The renovation became a metaphor for our relationship rebuilding. We tore down walls, both literally and figuratively. We replaced foundations that had been compromised. We created new spaces that honored both our pasts and our potential future. In couples therapy, we learned to communicate without the defensive patterns that had developed over 3 years. Dr. Martinez, our therapist, helped us understand how Jason's family dynamics had affected our marriage and how my secrecy had contributed to the dysfunction. "Both of you were protecting yourselves," she explained, "but protection became walls that prevented true intimacy." 6 months into our reconciliation process, Jason's family tested our new boundaries with a dinner invitation. "We should all move forward as a family," Sandra insisted on the phone. I agreed to attend, but prepared Jason for the possibility that I might leave if the old patterns reemerged. To my surprise, he responded, "If they disrespect you in any way, we'll leave together. That's non-negotiable." The dinner was a study in family dynamics. Sandra was overly complimentary about everything, from my outfit to my business acumen. Chase attempted to discuss investment opportunities until Jason firmly changed the subject. Quentin, who had been having marital problems with Zafira, was subdued and respectful. When Sandra made a subtle dig about my secret identity, Jason immediately intervened. "Mom, that's exactly the kind of comment we discussed. Nora chose privacy, not deception, and her choices deserve respect." Sandra looked startled at being challenged by her son. "I was just making conversation." "No, you were trying to reframe her integrity as manipulation, and it stops now." I squeezed Jason's hand under the table, genuinely moved by his advocacy. As we drove home, Jason asked, "Was that okay? Did I overstep?" I assured him it was perfect. For the first time, I felt like we were truly partners. Meanwhile, Zafira's marriage to Quentin was struggling. She confided that the family's materialism and status obsession had become suffocating. "I see how they treated you, and I realize they're doing the same thing to me, just in a different way," she told me during one of our coffee meetings. "They want me to be a trophy wife, not a real person." 6 months later, Zafira filed for divorce. Quentin was devastated, finally understanding how his family's values had cost him someone he truly loved. "I lost the best thing that ever happened to me," he admitted to Jason. "Just like you almost did." The divorce proceedings were difficult for the entire family. Chase and Sandra blamed Zafira's unrealistic expectations, refusing to acknowledge their role in the marriage's failure. Jason, however, supported Zafira throughout the process, finally standing up to his parents when they criticized her. "She deserves better than what this family offered," he told them, firmly. "And if you can't see that, maybe you need to examine your own values." 1 year after the wedding that nearly ended our marriage, I hosted Sterling Grand Hotel's 10th anniversary celebration at the Grandview Manor. Jason stood proudly by my side as I gave a speech thanking my team for their dedication. Chase and Sandra attended as guests, their behavior impeccably respectful, if not entirely genuine. The transformation in how they treated me was stark, from dismissive condescension to careful deference. "Ladies and gentlemen," I addressed the crowd of employees, business partners, and industry leaders. "When I started this company 10 years ago, I had a simple vision: to create spaces where people felt valued and respected, regardless of their background or status. Tonight, I'm proud to say we've not only achieved that goal in our hotels, but learned to apply it in our personal lives as well." Jason squeezed my hand, understanding the deeper meaning of my words. Later that evening, Jason and I stood on the hotel rooftop, looking out over the city lights. "A year ago, I almost lost you because I couldn't stand up for what matters," he said. "I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt your worth to me again." It wasn't just about standing up to your family. It was about seeing me, the real me, and loving all of me, not just the parts that fit your expectations. "I see you now, Nora, all of you, and I love you more for your strength, your success, and your unwillingness to accept disrespect." Our journey from betrayal to healing hadn't been easy. We'd spent countless hours in therapy, had difficult conversations, and rebuilt our relationship from the ground up. But we'd emerged stronger, with a foundation based on complete honesty and mutual respect. Zafira, meanwhile, had started her own interior design business and was thriving as a single woman. She often joined us for dinner, having become a close friend to both Jason and me. "You know," she said during one of these dinners, "watching you two rebuild your marriage gave me hope that healthy relationships are possible. You showed me what it looks like when someone truly has your back." Quentin struggled more with the changes in his life. Without Zafira and faced with his parents' disappointment over the divorce, he began to question the values he'd been raised with. "I spent my whole life trying to impress people who only cared about appearances. I lost sight of what actually matters," he told Jason during one of their reconciliation conversations. Chase and Sandra's relationship with Jason remained strained. They'd learned to treat me with respect, but their acceptance felt calculated rather than genuine. Jason had made peace with this reality. "I can't change who they are," he explained to me, "but I can control how much influence they have over our lives." 6 months later, Jason surprised me with a proposal. Not for marriage, since we were already married, but for a renewal of our vows. He said, "I want to marry you again, but this time as the complete person you are and as the man I've become. No secrets, no compromises, no family pressure. Just us choosing each other with full knowledge of who we really are." The vow renewal took place at a small ceremony in our backyard, attended by our closest friends and the family members who had genuinely supported us. Zafira served as my maid of honor, and my best friend Emma flew in from Seattle to celebrate with us. I wore the midnight blue dress I'd chosen for the original wedding, the one Sandra had deemed inappropriate. This time, Jason told me I looked beautiful and meant it. In my vows, I said, "Jason, a year ago, I almost walked away because I thought love meant accepting disrespect. I've learned that real love demands respect, honesty, and the courage to be fully known. I choose to build our future on that foundation." Jason's vows brought tears to my eyes. "Nora, I failed you when it mattered most. I chose approval over loyalty, comfort over courage. Today I promise to see you, defend you, and love all of you, your strength, your success, and your refusal to be diminished by anyone, including me." As we celebrated with our friends, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed us had ultimately forced us both to grow in ways we never would have otherwise. My story isn't just about revenge or revealing hidden wealth. It's about learning to value yourself enough to demand respect, even from the people you love most. It's about the courage to be fully known and the wisdom to recognize that some relationships require complete rebuilding rather than simple repair. Today, Jason and I continue to work on our relationship daily. His family has adjusted to our new boundaries, though I harbor no illusions about the conditional nature of their respect. We've learned that love without respect is hollow, and that authentic relationships require the vulnerability of complete honesty. Most importantly, I've learned that my worth isn't determined by others' assessment of my value, but by my own self-knowledge and courage to demand dignity. If you've ever had to stand up for yourself against family disrespect, I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Share this video with someone who might need encouragement to value themselves and establish healthy boundaries. Remember, your worth is not negotiable, and the people who truly love you will respect that truth.